This screencast is going to take a look at the third part of the settings, and this is going to be the longest video of all the settings. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the settings there, and right now we're going to go over from general down to privacy. So the first part here we have about, and when I click on the about section, this is a great place that you can go ahead and name your iPad. So mine right there says Eric's iPad. I can click the arrow over, and I can go ahead and I can change that to whatever I want. Great for schools to identify iPads if you just have a small set of iPads in your classroom, or if you have a whole class set and they're designated to specific students. So that way you can airdrop things to students or control who's doing what on one iPad. So that's great to know. If I hit the back arrow there, I have the software version, I have the model name, model number, and serial number. And that next little section, you can see I don't have any songs. I have 152 videos, only 2,216 photos, 18 apps. My capacity on this iPad is only 16 gigs, and I have 4.87 left. And then down below there is just some other things that you may or may not need at some point during it. The next little section is the control center. Oh, sorry, let's go back to general for a second. Sorry, I was just in the about section. Let me go back to software update. This is a great place for you to go ahead and check to see if your software is updated. Chances are if you take it out of the box in the next week or so, it's probably not going to be updated, and you might need to update it here. Next we have AirDrop, and you can always have AirDrop on for receiving off, contacts only, or everyone. I like to have contacts only, and the reason being is because one time I was out in a public setting at a sporting event, and I had somebody send me a not so nice image, so I always just have my contacts on there. AirPlay and AirDrop and handoff, sorry. Handoff is simply if you're working on your iPad and you have a Mac, you can simply, if you're working on Pages, which is one of the word processing apps, you can continue to work right off of, from your iPad right into your Mac. So that's great. And then automatically AirPlay to TVs. This is if you have Apple TV set up in your house or in your classroom, you can automatically connect to those. So I'm going to hit General. Next is iPad storage. I often go here to see like where is it that I'm taking up a lot of my space in my iPad. So you can see here that the majority of my space is my system, so my operating system. And then I have apps, and then photos, and then media, and then messages, and then books is the last one that's taking up space. And then individually I can see what's going on here. So all these different apps have a certain amount of space in them. So Keynote has 675.9 megabytes. Not a whole lot. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the back arrow there. Next is the background app refresh. And what this will allow to do is if you're not using apps for a while, it'll kind of turn them off. And these are the apps that will do that for you. And then when you want to start to use them again, they'll pop up back again so that they don't drain your battery as much. Next is the date and time. This is total personal preference and time zone. Do you want to be 24 hours? Do you want to show AM, PM? Do you want to show the date in the status bar? I like having all those things on. I also have it set automatically, so daylight savings time, it automatically changes, and then there's my time zone. Keyboard is next. You have a bunch of different keyboards here. You have shortcuts. You have all different types of things. I will go over shortcuts and things in another video or another section of the settings. But right now I have two different keyboards. I have the English one and I have the emoji. If you wanted to add a keyboard, you can go ahead and simply add the keyboard. And these are all the different keyboards that are available to us. So if you're an ESL teacher, this would be great. If you have a student that's ESL and maybe they're coming from Germany, you might want to add that keyboard in there to help them with maybe transitioning into English. And then you have all different types of check spelling. Predictive text means that if you start typing something, it will kind of predict what's coming next. Slide on floating keyboard to type. I'll show that later on as well. You have the emoji stickers, smart punctuation, split keyboard. All these things that obviously I have turned on. Fonts. I didn't purchase any fonts, so I just have the fonts that are available on there. Language and region obviously is English, and calendar, Fahrenheit, so that's all there. My dictionary, American English, and then the Apple Dictionary. VPN, I don't mess with ever. You might have to reset your iPad just because it's acting goofy sometimes. or this is a great place just to give it a refresh once in a while. So that's the general section. Next is the control center, and I can get the control center by pulling up where my battery power is and sliding down into the center so it looks like this. And there's my control center. So these are the different things that I can add to my control center. So right now it's telling me that I can access them within my apps, not just my home screen. And then the customized controls, I can take some off or add some as I go. So screen recording most likely is not added on, so you might want to add that. Timer is there, camera is there, and then Apple TV remote. I have one Apple TV, and I oftentimes use that remote instead of the other remote because we just can't find it. Imagine that. But these are all the other ones that you can add to the control center if you'd like. Next is display and brightness. The brighter your iPad is, the quicker the battery gets drained. They also have the light appearance compared to dark. I tried the dark and I didn't prefer it. But if you're a reader at night and your significant other is sleeping next to you, that's a great option because it turns everything black and then your text is a soft white. But you can change the brightness by simply dragging this and you can see that it's changing. Night shift, when I click on this, I can schedule it so that my night shift automatically appears on my iPad, let's say at 9 o'clock at night. Auto lock, this means that my iPad after 2 minutes is going to lock. My text size right now is right in the middle. I can make it smaller or I can make it larger. Hopefully no time soon will I have to do that. And then bold text is everything is bold, and I'll have that turned on. Next is my home screen and my dock. So my apps icon, I can have up to 30 apps showing, or I can have 20 apps showing. I'm okay with just having more. I don't need the bigger right now, but if you have visually impaired students or you personally need glasses, because you're over that age of whatever, you start to need glasses, you can turn that on. And then you have multitasking. If I click on that there, this allows for multiple apps to be running at the same time, picture-in-picture, and then gestures, which we will go over in another section. And then show suggested and recent apps in dock. The dock is the bottom section there where there's just a couple of apps. It's where you see I have the Wonder League one, Nearpod, App Store, and then settings. So that's the dock. So that was under home screen and dock. Accessibility is next. This is all for students that might have individual needs that you might want to turn on. So you have voiceover, you have zoom, you have magnifier, display and text size, make it larger. Motion is something within the iPad that allows it to do, like, in my opinion, I think more games, but it's probably not right. Spoken content, so everything will be spoken to you, and then auto descriptions. These are things that I encourage you if you ever need to try to see how they work. If I try to go over all these, it would be a whole nother 45-minute video. So physical and motor, there's my touch, there's my switch control, my voice control, my home button, my Apple TV remote, and then my keyboards. And then hearing devices, this is great for people that might have hearing aids. Your iPad automatically hooks up to their hearing aids. Audio and visual, and then subtitles and captioning. Guided access, I'll do another video on that later on. Siri is always there, and accessibility shortcuts. So when I click accessibility shortcuts, again, all these things are turned off right now. Just think about your IEP students for anything like accessibility. Next is wallpaper. When I had 5 iPads I had 5 iPad minis in my classroom, I used to put the wallpaper as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that way if I had groups working with the iPad, the students would know this is iPad 1, this is iPad 2, this is iPad 3. To change those, you just simply click on it, and you can go ahead and you can set that if you wanted to. If I want to choose a different wallpaper, right up top there it says choose a different wallpaper. There's my 2,216 images. There's my favorites. There's selfies that I have, live photos, panoramics, bursts, and so on and so forth. I can click the dynamic, and that gives me a bunch of different ones from Apple. Or I can click the stills, and that's what the stills are. So if I click the earth here, I can hit set. So it's going to ask me, do I want it on my lock screen, do I want it on my home screen, or both? I just want it on my home screen. So it's setting my wallpaper. If I minimize this for a second, you see there, now there's my earth. I'm going to go back to my settings, and I'm in wallpaper there. So that's what that looks like. Siri and search. So you can change your language of Siri, you can change your voice of Siri, and then you have suggested apps on, suggested apps in the lookup, suggested apps on the lock screen, and then you have all these different programs and things that can use Siri as well. You have your Touch ID, which is another way to wake up your iPad. Very simple. You just simply add a fingerprint, and then you can go ahead, touch the home button, and then you can start to do that. So that's how you set that up, and it just walks you through it. You can have multiple fingers if you want. Next is the battery. This kind of goes over your battery and what's taken up your battery in the last 24 hours compared to the last 10 days. You can change the brightness, which I talked about before. Right now you can see my battery percentage is on in the top right hand corner. I can toggle that and turn that off. I like to have it on so that I kind of get a gauge of how long my battery is going to be on for. And then last but not least is privacy. Some of the apps that you may download in this course or moving forward might ask you to access your privacy. So one section might be location. Another section might be microphone. So some of the apps might require you to have your microphone turned on. And you can see those are the apps that I have. And then the other one that oftentimes is asking for privacy is my camera. So you can see those are the ones that have that. So there's the section from general to privacy, an awful lot of information.